Tonight, a woman behind bars calls out an abuser, helping KARE 11 expose what can happen when unlicensed private companies transport inmates and the government turns a blind eye.
Here is AJ Legault with our continuing investigation, Nowhere to Turn. And a warning, this report does discuss sexual violence.
This is a free call from an inmate at the Minnesota Department of Correction.
In some places, it's hard to have a voice.
Hello?
Hi, Jennifer.
This is, hi.
But that doesn't mean people like Jennifer Seelig don't have a story.
I just want my story to be heard.
This is Jennifer back in 2020, led into the Ramsey County Detention Center by a rapist with a badge.
It instills a lot of fear. Like, who's going to believe me over that person?
Jennifer was arrested in Olympia, Washington on a DWI warrant out of Ramsey County. To pick her up, Ramsey sent their private, for-profit prisoner transport company, Inmate Services Corps, or ISC. Roderick Hankins is one of the ISC guards who picked Jennifer up, loaded her, shackled, into a passenger van filled with other detainees, and set off crisscrossing the country. Late one night, they pulled in to a Missouri rest stop.
I'm going to cry, but, like, when he forced me in the bathroom and did some stuff, he actually raped me, like, full-on raped me in the bathroom stall.
When Hankins dropped her off at the Ramsey County Jail, he whispered in her ear to stay quiet.
He even said, like, I'll take care of you. Like, don't talk about it. Don't say anything.
Jennifer said something.
Did you try to kiss her?
Hell no.
Okay.
Hankins, when confronted by a Ramsey detective, denied everything.
I'm happily married.
A rape kit was done. The DNA conclusive. Hankins convicted, sentenced in July to federal prison for 9 years. KARE 11's investigation finds he's one of 3 ISC guards in the last 5 years to be criminally charged with sexually assaulting women in their custody. The company, owned by Randy Cagle Jr., also settled lawsuits involving allegations of sexual assault by 2 other guards.
They have complete power and control over our entire lives. They're in their hands.
For a private company to be given total power and control over someone's life, you'd think there would need to be strict government oversight. But our investigation finds there's virtually no oversight. Congress in 2000 passed the only law that provides any standards for the private prisoner transport industry. The Interstate Transportation of Dangerous Criminals Act requires, among other things, background checks that include fingerprinting, a minimum of 100 hours of training, female guards for female prisoners, specialized training in the area of sexual harassment.
And you're saying none of that happened?
None of it happened.
Christina Hall is a former guard for ISC. She tells us there was no background check and almost no training before hauling humans around the country in chains.
And they just sent me to a place in Memphis to get my picture taken to make a badge. I never had fingerprinting done.
When you started, what sort of training did you get?
About 30 minutes telling us how to shackle an inmate and how to spray them in the back of the van.
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Leela Brown, another former ISC guard, told us the same story.
You get hired at Inmate Services. How much training do you get?
Probably about 35 minutes, 45 tops.
We asked the United States Department of Justice just how many times they've taken action against a prisoner transport company for violating the federal training and safety standards. They couldn't point us to a single case.
Nobody is enforcing the standards that are out there. Nobody is looking at the regulations that are out there. There's no oversight of these companies.
Julia Bade is with Just Detention International, a nonprofit dedicated to ending sexual abuse in confinement. Before that, she was deputy chief in the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division.
And when no one's looking, staff feel like they can act with impunity to commit crimes against the people they're transporting. Nobody's looking, and we need to.
The federal law also has a major loophole. It specifically says the standards only apply to companies transporting violent prisoners. There are no federal protections for people like Jennifer, extradited for DWI. So even though her rapist was convicted, The company that employed him was not held responsible for ignoring safety standards, like having a female guard.
Was there a female guard at any point?
No, not once. 2 male guards the entire time.
The federal standards are very weak, and they have a lot of gaps in them, and they don't cover a large percentage of prisoner transports in the United States.
Rick Hodsden, a former Washington County prosecutor, now serves as chair of the Minnesota board that licenses private security, including prisoner transport companies. He tells us those federal gaps make Minnesota's enhanced licensing requirements of background checks and training for private guards all the more critical. But Ramsey's contractor, Inmate Services Corps, was unlicensed, meaning they were operating in Minnesota illegally.
We found no record of them being licensed now or previously.
From D.C. to St. Paul, blind eyes turned to people who often have no voice.
What does something like this do to your soul?
It destroys it. It literally destroyed me. It was so terrifying.
We wanted to talk to ISC's owner, Randy Cagle, about all of this. He cussed us out and hung up. Ramsey County has not responded to our questions, citing pending litigation.
So is this something that's just isolated to Ramsey County? Are there other counties that are using these transport services?
No, this is not isolated at all to Ramsey County. In fact, Hennepin County has a contract with a company called U.S. Corrections LLC, which is also not licensed. After we started asking about it, the Hennepin Sheriff's Office sent us a statement indicating that they were somehow ignorant of the law and didn't know their private transport guards needed to be licensed. They've now suspended their contract, but they tell me they're not going to pursue a criminal investigation against their contractor for operating without a license, which by law is a gross misdemeanor.
All right. Good work. Thank you, AJ.
Thanks, AJ.